Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Christy Funk, and it is my privilege to welcome you all to today's Startup NASA Feature Series presentation. We're really looking forward to hearing from EarthXYZ and hope that you enjoy it. Before we get started, I want to point out that your microphones will be muted throughout the presentation, so if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box in the lower right corner of your screen, and we'll answer those during the Q&A session at the end. So this monthly series provides an opportunity for NASA technology-inspired startup companies to share their stories, including how they got involved with NASA and where they are currently in the development of their new product or service. Through NASA's Tech Transfer Program, we ensure that innovations developed for exploration and discovery are broadly available to the public. And we have a Tech Transfer Expansion Program where we augment that mission to include a focus on entrepreneurial innovation and creating partnerships to help accelerate commercialization. We invite you to visit the NASA Tech Transfer website for more information on available licensing opportunities and information around some of our other initiatives. So thanks so much again for joining us today. I'd like to especially thank Sean Sullivan and Michaela McShane for making this startup series possible. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Britt Corsi. About EarthXYZ, so first it was conceived as a premier venture builder of the most advanced tech. It is a NASA technology-inspired platform as a service focused on developing solutions to be implemented on a national scale to accelerate clean energy goals. And the EarthXYZ founder, Britt Corsi, is fueled by her passion for technology and its ability to help shape solutions, and is especially dedicated to developing EarthXYZ. Her background aligns extremely well with being an entrepreneur match to the NASA Power team out of NASA Langley Research Center in Virginia. So leading up to EarthXYZ, Britt set up and served as COO for an AI marketing startup, Water Bear Marketing. She spent time with Onum in its early stealth stage, where she was leveraged for her insurance expertise on a digital total loss product. And since then, that startup has raised more than $17 million in capital. She developed an international engineering consultancy, Forge IQ, from conceptual stages through acquisition by a global technology supplier for machine and plant construction that has revenues exceeding $500 million. And finally, but yet where Britt began her journey was contributing to scaling Moss Corporation from a 7-figure startup to 8 figures. She serves as a startup mentor for New Chip Accelerator. She's active with the district captain team for the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Has previously served on Metro Health Net Committee for the Metro Health Foundation Board of Directors, as well as the Ohio Catholic Federal Credit Union Supervisor Committee. Britt's pretty busy. It seems that she's also engaged in civic pursuits, so she most recently graduated from programs at the Cleveland Leadership Center and Supermajority Education Fund. And most recently, Britt was an Accelerate 2021 presenter and semifinalist in a category around quality of life. She was a part of the software accelerator program called Bounce Innovation Hub. And she was also an entrepreneur in the NASA FedTech Startup Studio in 2020. So with that, I'd like to welcome Britt Corsi to share about her journey. Britt, over to you.
Thanks, Christy. If you just want to let me know real quick that everything is showing as it should.
You are all set.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Christy, and Sean and Michaela as well. You guys have done an amazing job with the transfer program and the resources that you're giving people, especially coming from the FedTech side. So thank you for that. And thanks to this place called Remotely here in the Pacific Northwest. They've put me in a little co-working space to be able to have better internet for this today. So thanks to them. Happy to be here. Just reviewing the agenda real quick. It's not too serious. We're going to talk about the journey that we have gone through, and then a little bit more about EarthXYZ as a startup in general. So while we're getting there, feel free to add me, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, follow EarthXYZ We're going to have Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions that come up later or you just generally want to have a conversation, feel free. We'd love to chat with anyone. And let's go. So the journey itself, I know Chrissy mentioned FedTech, and it's been a big part of the reason why I'm here today talking and having the support of NASA. So FedTech, they are a venture builder, and they were partnering with NASA at the time for a NASA startup studio that was centered around commercializing technology. So they put together a pretty awesome program, and if I compare it to being in the startup world and other businesses looking to do market studies for products and take technology over the line there, their program was really good. It aligned very well with what anybody should be looking at when they want to take a solution into the market. So I would highly recommend anybody interested in exploring FedTech to do so. So going through FedTech, they pair you up with tech from NASA, and I was paired up with the Power Project. They are based out of Langley, and their focus primarily is on climate data. So they have decades of climate data, and they're really doing a nice job on working on the specifics of how much you can see, what you dial into. So I would encourage anyone interested in anything related to climate to check out their website. But so getting paired up with NASA Power, worked with the inventor Paul Stackhouse, great guy, and his team was very helpful throughout the process with FedTech. We had to explore a pretty big market, given that the technology we were paired with was raw data. So the technology itself gave you pretty good information on what's going on with our weather, what's going on with our climate, how you could use it for feasibility and building cases, right? But I wanted to explore a lot more of the ecosystem and better understand the climate, our planet's vital signs, and really what the entire ecosystem means as a whole. So I started exploring climate issues, right? And you think about, we're pretty aware of what's going on now with all of our climate issues. Maybe a year ago it was on our minds, but now it's become a little bit more prominent and focusing on solutions. So we're looking at climate, we're looking at your CO2, we're looking at industrialized farming and agriculture as it relates to how much devastation it causes on the ground. We're also looking at products that go into the ecosystem for solutions like zero energy homes and within the circular economy. So it's a pretty broad ecosystem that we're diving into here. And since the data itself can be used in so many different solutions and applications, we had to explore all of them. And we found that there are a lot of solutions. There are a lot of different startups. There's a lot of tech and R&D that should be coming out in the next year or two. That'll be pretty helpful in terms of the energy transition. But there were a lot of gaps in the system that we found, and that's as it relates to consumers in the process, not having enough awareness and education and information on anything that is related to climate, as well as the resources online. So if you think about what we're able to do today with the internet, we can quickly go to Google and find something we're looking for. But what we found during this investigation process was that's not so much the case. So if you're to look up zero energy builders or sustainable solutions, climate issues, you're going to get a wide variety of information coming up online, but you're not necessarily being led to a place that can help you understand, give you the information you need, and give you the opportunity to connect with solutions, with products and companies that can take you to that level where you adopt sustainable practices, whether you're on the residential side or the commercial side. So once we got to that point where we actually understood the market, because it's a long journey, not having been in climate and energy, environmental, it took a lot to really understand it. I mean, I was waking up in the morning, researching. By the end of the night, I was watching documentaries and lived, breathed, ate everything climate. And I still questioned whether I was right or wrong, but when you get to the point of validation and you see that what your assumptions are actually true when you have conversations, it's a really cool feeling. So we finally got through to the FedTech NASA pitch day, and there were about 8 different teams there that pitched as well with us, and great experience, very supportive. I would say that I was overwhelmed with the amount of support that I received following the pitch day. And that's from people at universities, people in the other startup world. NASA was and still is a very big supporter. I've had folks from the technology team reach out, Glenn, Langley, a lot of support. And so this part was kind of unexpected, but also amazing because you, again, got to learn a little bit more about how you're going to go into developing a startup in the first place, or, you know, who you should talk to and what's next after this. So I needed to find resources, specifically on the tech side. After the pitch day program, I didn't really have a team, and so I didn't have a person on the development side. You know, we didn't win any money or anything like that through the competition or the pitch day, so we needed to put resources together in order to build the startup. So Bounce was great with their AWS program through the accelerator. I had access to be able to build out some of the vision that is EarthXYZ, and they also gave us a little exposure, right? That's important through the process, is helping people in the community understand what you're working on. That way they're able to connect with you if it's something that they're interested or maybe they're working on as well. So after getting in with Bounce, I was already participating in the Cleveland Leadership's Cleveland Bridge Builders program, and this was picking up right after the NASA FedTech cohort. So I was going through the Civic Leadership program, and they just so happened to have this Accelerate competition where they allow people in the community working on something that's near and dear to them or a solution that can help the community pitch in front of a panel. And so luckily I was accepted, made it to semifinalists, pitched with them, and it was a good experience, although I had a panic attack giving the pitch itself. So if you're interested in watching a very uncomfortable pitch video, you can find that on Google. Thankfully, it's still available. And one of the other pieces of Accelerate that I was kind of tying together at the time was getting a prototype ready. So with the pitch, I wanted to be able to show something, show the vision itself of what EarthXYZ is and what it can do, and also give other people the opportunity to kind of see the systems, the ecosystem, the models of what we're trying to accomplish. So that I launched in tandem with the Accelerate pitch, and again, another, human experience where you get to kind of learn through your failures. We did not do enough smoke tests in the dev environment, so when I presented to the panel that day and told everybody live, I think there's a small audience, but about 200 people, I told everyone, we just launched our prototype. Please take a look at it. And nobody could log in. So that was a really cool experience and another laughable human moment. So went through that experience with Accelerate, and and then thought, okay, well, we need resources, we need funding, we need to be able to get a developer in here to pay them to do the work. And so that in itself is a very difficult pursuit when you don't have revenue already and your team's a little bit smaller. It's within the first year of diving into an early stage startup, so you don't have much traction with really anything yet. So the funding journey is pretty interesting, and it's really difficult. And I hope that the entrepreneurial service programs dive a little bit more into helping some entrepreneurs in the innovation ecosystem as it relates to technology. But that's one of the things I think everybody has to go through, right? And so with getting to that point of finally looking for resources, seeing where I am, you could probably get frustrated. And I mean, I really did. And I had to step away for a couple of months too, because we were finally at a point where, the market is actually doing and seeing the things that we predicted in 2020, now in 2021, with your policy coming down from the governors of each state with some pretty ambitious clean energy goals, with companies being interested in circular economies, with businesses and product companies trying to reach their consumer market, and this being such a big thing with our climate needs in the planet. It's frustrating when you know that this is a solution that you can help with, but it's not necessarily maybe clicking or at the right time, so you have to kind of navigate those waters as they come. And so I took a step back from trying to seek funding, right? So we're on this one-minded path of we need funding to get everything going, and so I had to reflect on that and ask myself, is this the right path that we're taking of just looking for funding and hoping somebody's going to give it to us so we can get developers working on the solution? And that was the point where I kind of asked myself, like, is this where you give up? Is this it for the journey that you've been on? And, if it's not, what's your next step? So you kind of have to get into that positive mindset where you think, how do you make this better, right? And one of the things that stuck with me was this quote, if you want to succeed, double your rate of failure. And I felt like that was kind of where I was coming from when not getting funding, was I felt like I failed even though I hadn't. It's still such a short journey. And so I had to put a different game plan together. I stopped going the route of looking for funding. I stopped depending on different entrepreneurial program resources locally, and I put a new approach together. So over the past few months, I've developed some partners, and that is one of them is Water Bear Marketing. So they are going to be helping fulfill the back-end affiliate ecosystem for all of the product companies inside of it, which is a really great solution because their tech and their dashboard supporting their clients already is something that is just it's a super value add for the people within the ecosystem who are already spending so much money trying to reach their consumers. To have such a well thought out and consumer behavior driven product supporting them is a no-brainer, and I'm super happy to have made that partner there. And then on the dev equity side, we're deciding between a couple opportunities. Instead of looking for funding to bring on developers, we've decided to go the route of looking at firms who will take some equity and give us developer support and a team and work with us and collaborate with us on a variety of different initiatives that we're going to be putting together. I've also somewhat solidified the portfolio of fulfillment, and that part was really important to me because I didn't want to just include anybody. I wanted to make sure that those who would be fulfilling and leading the development side of the projects within the sustainability space, circular economy, and just your general ecosystem, that they know what they're doing, right? Because that's the reputation that carries on for everybody involved, not just trusting me for it. And then finally founders group. So I wasn't having any luck with the local ecosystem, so I turned to startups.com, which helps launch and accelerate startups. And so they've put me into a founders group where I'm able to collaborate with about 8 other founders and go through this launch journey with them, with their support and potential resources, with funding. So that'll be a new journey for me jumping into. And the other is a pilot program. So one of the reasons I'm here in the Pacific Northwest is to evaluate whether or not Oregon may be a good pilot program. And there's a couple other states, including our hometown in Ohio, where we're looking to pilot. But it's important, again, to make sure that we're selecting the right community, the right stakeholders, that we're on the same page, that our mindsets are aligned, and that we have the same goals in mind when it comes to shifting into a different way of living, because it really is. The circular economy and sustainability, it's just a completely different way of living. And, it takes a little bit of time to get everybody on the same page. So kind of wrapping in the EarthXYZ and to touch and get into what we're doing and all of that about us. So again, as Christy mentioned in the beginning, we were conceived at FedTech, and we're working on a platform as a service. So that will allow us to customize either the residential or commercial application in any state. And the goal is to partner with local communities to make it a specific pursuit for them, their stakeholders, their community, because it's going to be different for every single community. We can't roll out one platform and expect it to work everywhere for everybody. But the biggest thing that we understand is the gaps between all of the different stakeholders and parties involved, to where we can fill those gaps and help them reach their goals a little bit more effectively. And again, within the circular economy, sustainability, and zero energy space, that's where our focus is. So going over the team, we've had a couple contributors on the developer side, which has helped greatly get to the point where we were able to have a prototype. But as the COVID economy was, going through its hurdles, they ended up getting work and not being able to dedicate time anymore. So grateful for what they've been able to help with, and happy that they're going back to work. But that's one of the reasons we're looking at the dev equity model. And now we have someone focusing on relationship development, a network engineer, and a group of advisory. So we have some pretty great people offering help. They do wish to remain in their stealth mode, and they work in other organizations as well. And of course, the NASA support and collaboration on the tech side with Bounce. WaterBear is the new affiliate partner, and then our startups.com founder group. So these are all of my primary people right now that are supporting everything with EarthXYZ. So going back to what we do. So we're a digital search engine, ecosystem, and marketplace focused on accelerating clean energy goals. And how we achieve that is by providing that central location where stakeholders can collaborate with consumers and both of their needs intersect with one another. That's the biggest gap that we're seeing right now. And so to dive into that a little bit more, to explain the gaps that I keep talking about. So if you think about the different parties involved in the ecosystem and who's starting them, who's leading them, who's needing these different resources to come together, we look at government entities, and more than 3,000 counties, they're going to need help in planning and carrying out the actual goals that are coming down from policy and the funding that comes down from policy work, to be able to communicate inside of their communities and manage those clean energy goals. And their constituents, right? So you have 80 million people with homes that are going to need to be retrofit eventually for a cleaner economy, whether that's with solar panels or heat pumps or geothermal. This entire switch is going to happen at some point, and there's a huge gap between your government and your residential. And then you have your business side. So you think about all of the commercial buildings that exist in the United States alone, they're going to have to meet some of these new policies that require them to have a more sustainable business, operations, facility, manufacturing, and that's a huge overhaul as it relates to the circular economy. And so the gap between the government and business, and then those businesses to the developers within the circular economy and their products and services, that's where we're talking about filling in those gaps along the way. And so to give you kind of a better example, because I realize with solutions that are as early as this, it's still difficult to grasp it. And, you know, that doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing or you're not intelligent. It's just with new solutions, it's somebody else's vision, and it takes a little bit of time to get there. And I'm still learning how to communicate this the best way possible as well. So you think about the government side, right? They're engaging their various stakeholders right now. They're having meetings to trying to put together a roadmap and strategy for their community. And they're also waiting for things to happen with the clean energy policies, whether it's a finalization or funding that comes with it. And that's where EarthXYZ would insert itself. At that point where they're sitting down to meet to talk about how they can achieve these solutions in their communities, and working alongside them and their stakeholders and their residents to come up with ways that complement their goals, and not to kind of bulldoze or, you know, be a bull in a china shop telling them what they should be doing. It's how do we collaborate together and come up with solutions that work for everybody by using the ecosystem and model that can work, and by including people that have done this before and know how to lead the way. And then with businesses, same scenario. You have businesses who are currently doing a huge haul of recruiting people in your ESG space. I mean, big companies. They're evaluating their sustainability, their operations, the practices and processes they have in place. And it's a huge undertaking, because if you think about this not being at the forefront of what we've been paying attention to for how many generations now, this is a lot of work across the United States to try and get done. And we thought about that too, not just now as a solution, but in the next 5 to 10 years, how do we work together? And what does that look like? Whether it's, you know, in a COVID environment or we get back to normal. But the generations that'll be coming into these roles, they've been used to using technology, and they've been used to engaging with others, placing orders, and making purchases online. So if we think about how business interacts with one another in the next 5 to 10 years, we can almost assume that some sort of platform between the circular economy, sustainability, and zero energy space is almost going to be a guaranteed at that point based on the way people do business. So we've thought about that as well, and we think we're really right on our assumptions of what we need and how we can help everyone right now. So the platform itself, just going through the solutions, it's, again, hard to grasp something that I'm also not showing a demo for at the same time. So the platform itself, we can customize residential or commercial platform solutions, and this is alongside your local government and your stakeholder collaboration. Once you get into that collaborative platform that's assembled together, you're able to produce a search engine ecosystem and marketplace. And this is with vendors that we know, trust, have a background of successful projects. It's, you know, not just some random person off the street that claims they can tell you how to build a circular economy. It's people that know what they're doing. And this is going across residential and business, so your commercial side too. And then one of the biggest things, tying back to the beginning of the research from FedTech, was there was a huge gap in awareness. I think there was like some 60% of people knew that the climate was in a bad place, but they also didn't know what to do about it. And so we wanted to meet our users where they were by giving them educational material, giving them the information they need to better understand what's going on, what solutions are available, and then based on their specific location, actually matching them with the incentives led by their government, communities, and the programs that they could probably participate in that may even be tax incentives at some point, to navigate and understand what exactly it is that they should be doing, and then turnkey, hand them the products, the businesses, and the solutions that they can directly talk to carry out those next steps. The other piece that I personally like is the transparency part. So if you think about from a national scale, this is a cosmic shift, right? We haven't sat down to think about how to get everybody switched over into the circular economy and to adopt sustainability practices. And without having all of these systems connected and understanding what the other states are doing, that almost creates the domino of what problems are to come. So nobody would be working together. Nobody would be collaborating or learning from one another if they're doing it separately. And so with the EarthXYZ model, as we implement into different communities, we're able to take that information and reshape it for the benefit of others, the next community, and to also track that data that's going on to see if we're working in harmony, right? To see if the circular systems that we're putting in place in communities are complementing the next community over, are benefiting the next state over. So it's a huge base of data that comes from using one platform and ecosystem like this, including resource allocation, because if you think one state is going to be able to achieve an entire circular economy with one vendor, maybe a little short-sighted at this point. We need to make sure that we're planning for these resources for the long term and not just for one project here and there. So feel good about EarthXYZ being a platform that delivers the solutions that are missing right now, right? We're supporting the government. We're encouraging collaboration between stakeholders. We're creating those turnkey solutions for consumers on the residential and commercial side, while we're hitting that major focus right now of everybody accelerating our clean energy goals. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for me going through from FedTech, having no background in energy, environment, clean energy, to getting to a point where I've been able to analyze the market and all of the players involved to say, this is the problem that we're facing, and this is why, we're not making the progress as fast as we could potentially make it, and why not try that platform that can make everything easier for everybody? Why not leverage technology through it? So I know we're not too far away from time, but I would love to talk to anybody who has questions. If I've missed something throughout this, feel free to ask and bring it up. And obviously, please support us if you can. Follow us. Look at the early adopter model for the residential side. That'll give you a good idea of how we would be shaping ecosystems within both your residential and commercial side. And email me. Oh, what else do I have? I have something else for you guys. Hold on. I wanted to make sure I shared the technology transfer program contact information. If there's anyone on here who's interested in exploring what technologies and portfolio exist within the NASA space, reach out to them. They've been phenomenal in any questions that I've had and helping me. So if you're interested and you don't know where to start, ask me or ask Christy or Michaela. I think everybody would love to ask or answer any questions that any, aspiring or starting up entrepreneurs have. And even companies looking to explore different technologies to put into their companies. There's a lot of different software solutions here that can benefit a wide variety of business verticals. So I'd encourage everybody to look at the portfolio. And I think that's it now.